Welcome to the dumbest timeline. We go through the dumbest timeline. Is this truly the dumbest timeline?
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Dumbest Timeline. This is Season 2, or Series 2. As I do these as limited series, I try to create a theme. The first season didn't... I should say, the first season technically had a theme. The idea was, tell me in your words why you think we live in the dumbest timeline. So every week, I had a guest. They would come on, and I would ask them, why do they feel they live in the dumbest timeline? And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that became difficult with that series was the fact that almost every single week, the root of why we lived in the dumbest timeline was greed. Every single week. Without fail, I should say, not even sometimes. Every single conversation, there was a realization that at some point, the reason that things were dumb, whether it was the headline culture, whether it was the lead with Brandon, whether it was marketing, whether every single subject that I spoke with people about was greed. Even the conversation we had with Miriam at the beginning about trying to control, because there's that story about the kid and the kids in class identifying as cats and classrooms having kitty litter. And in the end, the kitty litter was in the classrooms because of unfortunate incidents that would happen based on mass school shootings and needing to use the kitty litter to cover blood, which brought us to the fact that the mass school shootings happen because there's no gun control laws, because the NRA and other gun lobbyists want to continue to make money, so they will never put in place protections to limit the access to guns. So children being accused of being trans species, where they are pretending to be cats in class and that teachers are letting them use litter boxes with kitty litter, was actually broken down to the fact that gun lobbyists want to make a profit and will never allow for gun laws the access to guns because they make money from it, which leads to the idea that someone with a mental health issue can get access to a weapon, and then school shootings can happen, and then that can lead to needing kitty litter to cover up blood. And when you start to have those conversations every single week, you kind of lose the sense of wanting to discuss the subject of why you live in the dumbest timeline. So I got to a point where I just didn't have the spark to want to have those conversations because it became very difficult and depressing. But then I took a year off. And although it's still difficult and depressing at times, I have so many things that I'm interested about. And the dumbest timeline is still a place where I can have those conversations and discuss those things and look into those things. So with that said, welcome to the first episode of the second series. I don't know how many of these I'm going to make in this series. I'm banking a few first up front early. I think ideally I'm going to aim for 10 or 12. So this is the first one. The first and the second are already recorded. So if you're listening to this one, you are hopefully excited, as I am, to discuss this subject matter. And I look forward to tackling more discussions on AI in this series. Our first episode is going to discuss, and again, these episodes are going to stay short. If anything, I keep saying season because I'm so used to that concept. Series 2, I'm going to try and keep the episodes like 15 minutes if possible. I'll do my best because I like to rant and I like to talk a lot. But ideally, I'm going to try and keep these to 15 minutes, maybe touching 20 on some. But 15 minutes is the max that I really do want to aim for. And seeing as I'm talking about AI, maybe that's as much as I should do because the machines are going to have a lot on me when I start doing this subject. But in Series 2, we're going to be talking about the dumbest timeline, Part 2, AI. And the reason I wanted to discuss AI is because I find the subject super interesting. I find the approach that people have in this industry very interesting. And at its roots, AI is once again based in greed. We're never going to get away from that, folks. But for anyone who's wondering, the explosion of AI in the industry came at a point where, as I understand it, and you can look this up if you'd like, the money behind AI wasn't slowing down as much as it was plateauing. And to gain more interest in it, OpenAI launched ChatGPT knowing that it was good enough to gain visibility and start major conversations, but that it wasn't anywhere near as good as we needed it to be to actually call it artificial intelligence. Because that's one of my main things. It's not an artificial intelligence that we're seeing when we use ChatGPT, when we use Gemini, when you're using any of those AI chatbots or AI tools or AI planners that they have on smartphones now and stuff like that. What those are large language models that can mimic human conversation, in my opinion, poorly, but it does so just well enough to, let's say, pass a Turing test. And the Turing test is this, long time ago was a test that was set up to check, it was kind of this test to see if someone was human, and a machine had to a certain point had never beaten it. And the idea was that one day a machine would be able to beat the Turing test. And ChatGPT and a lot of these AI bots can beat the Turing test, which is something that a lot of people are very excited about. And if I'm not mistaken, they beat the Turing test a while back, but to me, that was a major step. I personally am looking forward to what people call the singularity. The singularity is the idea of AGI, artificial general intelligence, as in it won't need prompts. That's something I'm interested in. Now, I know that freaks a lot of people out. Right now, though, when you take into consideration, an AI can't do anything unless you ask it to do something. Whereas I'm looking forward to a moment where, and I can hear some of you panicking as I say this, but I'm looking forward to a moment where an AI doesn't need a prompt. It exists and can start asking its own questions. And I look forward to that because I don't like the idea of humanity, who is already so broken, continuing to just feed these systems. And I know already there's documentaries about it and everything. Most of the people who have fed these systems and built these AI systems did so with a bias. The AIs themselves are probably trained with biases. We need better systems. But it's, again, it comes down to greed. It comes down to limited access. It comes down to racism. There's just so many factors as to why this stuff keeps coming up and why the system is the way it is. Ultimately, I believe the goal should be for us to try and change those systems by paying attention as much as possible with AI. So that's my goal. My goal is to follow all the tech people that I feel are being genuine with their conversations regarding AI. And I really hope that we can have more conversations about AI and better access for marginalized people in that sphere, so that the AIs that are trained aren't just designed to be greedy and benefit solely the 1% and the wealthy, which is unfortunately where we are currently at. We are still in that boat right now, in a world where AI is being controlled by a very specific group of people. And anytime someone questions that, you can look this up too, you'll notice a pattern of people being pushed out or people having to resign, and those people speaking up just enough to be like, hey, something is wrong with what we're building, or hey, the way this is being built should be reviewed more. And ultimately, no one following up. and everyone's warning you. And that's the one of the parts I find the most interesting, but also the most concerning. If you are standing on a cliff and looking out into a beautiful world, because that's what I think AI could be. Potentially, it could be very beautiful. But if you're standing on a cliff and everyone's telling you the cliff face is not as strong and sturdy as you believe, and you might fall, so be careful. But every person that is trying to warn you about that is being drowned out by the people who are telling you, look at this beauty. That's how it feels in the industry with AI for me. Every time someone speaks up about problematic things that may be happening, there's a lot more conversation about how cool AI is. And I do think AI is very cool, but I do think we do have to take into consideration the things people are saying about the machines, about the systems. And this is coming from someone, me personally, I don't know much about computers. I mean, I guess I know enough, but I don't know much about programming in AI, teaching large language models. I understand the concept, but I've never done it. I've never seen it done. I'm someone who uses these systems because I find them interesting, but that's the extent of it. And I hope to learn more in this process. I think one of the other major aspects that I'm going to discuss when I do the interviews, because I've already done, like I said, I'm trying to bank, but I want to talk to creatives about the content, about the subject, because I personally like the idea that AI and AI prompts and AI systems should be in the hands of creatives working with engineers and programmers and stuff like that, and not solely in the hand of programmers who are beholden to companies who themselves have investors. I think creatives should have a hand in the control, because I can't think of a area where AI, at least for now, because I know they're working on bringing AI into other fields, but the creative sphere was the one where they could really make the biggest jumps, creating visual arts, creating video clips, creating text. I can ask an AI right now to write me a haiku. I can ask an AI to create a song. There's a lot of things that I can do that I don't think the goal of AI was ever to do these things. AI wasn't supposed to create art. We were supposed to create art. Humans were supposed to create art. AI was supposed to figure out ways for us to have to work less and for us to appreciate the beauty of the world more. And instead, it's been used to create and take away control from the creatives and devalue the work of the creatives and leave us in this situation. In any case, this is the first one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be back with more in the future. And ideally, I would love you guys to join up and follow me on all my socials. So that's at Brian Holiday, HOLIDAE, on all socials. And I'll be back with more. You can also check out my other podcast that I do with the crew. That's Geek Cypher. That's on Wednesdays at 7:15. And you can check out geekcypher.com. That's GEEKCYPHA.com. And that's it. I want to thank you guys for tuning into this first one. I'll be back with another. Peace.
The Dumbest Timeline, Series 2, AI, hosted by Brian Holiday. Produced by Brian Holiday for Brian Holiday Productions. Co-produced in partnership with Free X Agents Media. Theme song by Jasper Q. Jones. Mixing by Brian Holiday. Enjoyed the show? Follow this show on Spotify or review it on Apple Podcasts. Lastly, subscribe to The Dumbest Timeline on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening.